You've got to be kidding me, Wendy. Frozen food again? Kyle's voice thundered across the house, rattling the walls. I stood there, clutching my swollen belly, feeling my pulse quicken. I'm doing my best, Kyle. I'm 8 months pregnant, I replied, my voice trembling as I fought back tears. Kyle's eyes narrowed, dark with anger. Well, if you love Frozen so much, why don't you freeze outside? With a swift movement, he shoved me towards the front door and slammed it shut behind me. I stumbled onto the cold porch in disbelief. The cold hit me like a wall. Shivering, I knocked on the door, hoping that Kyle would come to his senses and let me back in. But the minutes dragged on, and it became clear he wasn't going to. Desperation gnawed at me. Hey, are you okay? A voice called out from the sidewalk. I looked up to see Ethan, our neighbor, frowning with concern. Without waiting for my response, he jogged up and shrugged off his coat, draping it over my shoulders. Come on, let's get you inside, he urged gently, offering me his arm for support. I hesitated, feeling a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment, but the biting cold pushed me to accept his help. Thank you, I murmured, clutching the coat tightly. Ethan guided me towards his house next door. What happened? He asked, his tone cautious. I sighed deeply, feeling the weight of my current reality settle in. Kyle, he lost it. He locked me out, I explained, feeling a lump form in my throat. Ethan nodded understandingly, his face set with determination. You need to get warm. We can talk more inside. He opened the door and led me into his warmly lit living room. I sank into the couch, feeling tears well up. Ethan handed me a cup of steaming tea. Thanks, I said, wrapping my hands around the mug for warmth. You don't have to explain now, Ethan said softly, sitting across from me. But if you need anything, I'm here. The reality of my situation crashed down on me. Here I was, 8 months pregnant, thrown out into the cold by my own husband. The frustration and betrayal churned inside me. The silence stretched uncomfortable and heavy. Ethan's phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. He glanced at it and then offered it to me. Maybe you can call someone? A friend or family? I took the phone, my hands trembling slightly. My mind raced. Who could I call? My parents were far away, and I couldn't bring myself to explain this to anyone. I just don't know who to call, I admitted, feeling more lost than ever. Ethan's face softened with empathy. You can stay here for now. We'll figure it out in the morning, he offered. I managed a small, grateful smile. Thank you, Ethan. You don't know how much this means to me. He nodded, standing up. Get some rest. We'll sort things out, he assured, heading towards the kitchen to give me some space. As I sat there, the warmth of the tea spreading through me, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this frozen nightmare. But for tonight, I would take the small comfort offered and try to find the strength to face whatever came next. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee. Ethan had already been up for hours, it seemed. I groaned, feeling the tightness in my back from the previous day's stress. Morning? Ethan said brightly as he entered the living room with a tray. I made you some breakfast. Thanks, Ethan, I responded, trying to muster a smile. I still felt the sting of last night's events. As I nibbled on a piece of toast, memories of my time with Kyle came flooding back. We hadn't always been like this. I remembered when we first met at a mutual friend's party. We just clicked. I was drawn to his charm and ambition. Kyle had big dreams, and I was thrilled to be part of them. Our early years of marriage were like a dream. Kyle showered me with flowers and surprises. We'd talk late into the night about our future, our hopes, and dreams. But things changed. Kyle's been difficult for a while now, I said aloud, surprising myself with my admission. Ethan looked at me attentively, encouraging me to continue. He works late, comes home angry and distant. It wasn't like this before. Ethan nodded. Sometimes people change, but you don't have to accept it, Wendy. You deserve better. I sighed, feeling the weight of those words. Ethan's reassurance was warm, but the reality of my situation was cold and clear. I couldn't ignore the warning signs anymore. That evening, I confronted Kyle as soon as he walked through the door. We need to talk, I said firmly. He glared at me. What now, Wendy? Why have you been coming home so late, and your anger? It's getting worse. Kyle threw his jacket on the couch roughly. Work is stressful, something you wouldn't understand considering you sit around all day. That hit hard. I'm pregnant, Kyle. This isn't just sitting around. I'm trying, but you're never here to support me. He scoffed. Maybe I'm not here because I don't want to be around someone who's always nagging. Tears sprang to my eyes, but I fought them back. What happened to us, Kyle? We used to be happy. People change, Wendy. Maybe it's about time you realize that, he snapped before storming off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. Left alone in the living room, I stared at the closed door, feeling a mix of anger and despair. This wasn't the man I married. This wasn't the life I imagined. The days blended into each other. Kyle's late returns became more frequent, his excuses layered with the scent of deceit. One evening, as he staggered in, I noticed a smudge of lipstick on his collar. My heart sank. "Where were you?" I demanded. "Out, with colleagues," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. "Colleagues? Which ones, the ones who wear red lipstick?" I retorted, pointing at the evidence. He looked down, flustered, then met my gaze with icy defiance. "You're being paranoid. You've always been paranoid." His words were like daggers, but they couldn't slice through the truth I was beginning to face. "Something's not right, Kyle, and I'm going to find out what it is." With that, I turned and headed for the bedroom, my resolve hardening. The man who once made my heart flutter was now turning it to stone, step by step. But if Kyle thought he could continue this betrayal unnoticed, he was sorely mistaken. The storm was just beginning. Kyle insisted we attend his parents' anniversary party, despite my growing fatigue. "You can't skip this, Wendy. My parents expect us," he said sternly, his tone leaving no room for argument. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me, but nodded, trying to keep the peace. "All right. I just hope we don't stay too late." Kyle rolled his eyes. "Just don't embarrass me, okay?" We arrived at the celebration, the grandeur of the event doing little to lift my spirits. Charlotte and Robert greeted us warmly, their eyes subtly scanning for signs of trouble. "Wendy, you look wonderful," Charlotte said with a kind smile. "Thank you, Charlotte. I'm trying," I replied, forcing a smile. Throughout the evening, Kyle was his usual charming self with everyone else. I watched as he smoothly interacted, his facade impeccable. But when he glanced my way, his eyes were cold and indifferent. "You need to eat something, Wendy," Charlotte said gently, guiding me to the buffet. "I know tonight must be tiring for you." I nodded gratefully. "It's been a rough few weeks. Kyle's been different." Charlotte's eyes softened, and she hesitated for a moment. "If you ever need to talk, dear, you know where to find me." "Thank you, Charlotte," I murmured, feeling a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Kyle eventually found me, his expression hardening. "We need to make the rounds. Don't just sit here." I felt a pang of anger but stood up, following him as he moved around the room, schmoozing with guests. He kept a firm grip on my arm, his fingers digging in just enough to remind me of his control. As the night dragged on, my fatigue grew overwhelming. "Kyle, can we please leave soon?" I pleaded quietly as he finished a conversation. He shot me a sharp look. "Just a little longer. Stop complaining." Finally, as the party began to wind down, we made our way towards the exit. Kyle's mood soured as we reached the car. "You couldn't even last a few hours without whining," he muttered angrily. I swallowed the retort that bubbled up, the night's exhaustion and stress weighing heavily on me. "I'm doing my best." "Well, your best isn't good enough," he snapped, starting the car with a jerk. The drive home was silent, tension hanging thick in the air. As we pulled into the driveway, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief, just wanting to crawl into bed and forget the nightmare of the evening. But once inside, Kyle didn't let up. "Next time, try not to embarrass me in front of my family," he sneered. Anger flared up in me. "I'm 8 months pregnant, Kyle. You can't expect me to pretend everything's fine when it's not." He laughed bitterly. "You think you have it hard? Try supporting this family while you sit around all day." I stared at him, feeling a mix of betrayal and rage. "We can't go on like this, Kyle." "Then maybe you should leave," he said coldly, turning his back on me. His words hung in the air, chilling me to the bone. The man who once promised to cherish and care for me had become a stranger, leaving me to wonder what had gone so wrong. As I went to bed that night, I knew things had to change. For the sake of my baby and myself, I needed to find the strength to face whatever came next. Kyle's absences became a pattern, and his once warm demeanor dissolved into something cold and unfamiliar. One evening, as I sat by the window, I heard him on a phone call. "Yeah, Tina, I miss you too. I can't wait to see you again," he whispered, smiling in a way that sent chills down my spine. Tina, the name echoed in my mind, igniting a fire within me. Kyle hung up and walked inside, oblivious to my presence. "Who's Tina?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. Kyle froze for a moment, then turned, his face a mask of indifference. "None of your business," he replied, brushing past me. "None of my business? Kyle, I'm your wife," I insisted, my voice rising. He scoffed. "And you're also a nag. Maybe if you paid more attention to your own shortcomings, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I opened my mouth to argue, but he had already stormed off, leaving me with a swirling mix of anger and disbelief. I needed to know more, needed to find some clarity. The next day, while Kyle was at work, I went over to Ethan's place. I knew he had seen things that might shed light on the situation. He answered the door, concern etched in his features. "Wendy, come in. What's going on?" he asked, leading me to the kitchen. I sat down, feeling the weight of my suspicions. "Ethan, have you seen Kyle with another woman? Anyone named Tina?" Ethan's face tightened. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I've seen him a few times with a younger woman. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure it was my place." My heart sank. "Thank you for telling me," I managed to say, feeling a mix of gratitude and pain. Ethan reached out, touching my hand gently. "Wendy, you don't deserve this. What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I need to find out the truth." Ethan squeezed my hand reassuringly. "I'll help you however I can." That evening, as Kyle returned home later than usual, I stared at him from across the kitchen. "How was work?" I asked, watching for any signs of guilt. "Exhausting. I'm going to bed," he muttered, not making eye contact. The next few days, I felt as though I was living in a fog. Kyle's increasingly cold demeanor only fueled my suspicions. Each early morning and late evening, the phantom presence of Tina loomed over our lives. One night, as Kyle was in the shower, I decided to check his phone. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the messages. There they were, texts from Tina. Conversations filled with endearments and plans that included hotel stays and secret meetings. The proof was undeniable. Confrontation was inevitable. As he exited the bathroom, I held the phone up. "Kyle, care to explain this?" I demanded, my voice barely concealing my fury. His face paled, then hardened. "You went through my phone? That's low, Wendy." "Not as low as cheating on your pregnant wife," I retorted. He laughed bitterly. "Maybe if you weren't so wrapped up in yourself, things would be different." Tears of anger and hurt welled up in my eyes. "I'm pregnant with your child, and you're off with someone else. How could you?" Kyle turned away, not giving me the courtesy of a response. His silence was more damning than any words could be. As he walked out of the room, I knew this battle was far from over. With Ethan's support and the growing certainty of Kyle's betrayal, I steeled myself for what needed to be done. Kyle had lit the fuse. Now he would face the explosion. I couldn't sit back and let Kyle's betrayal go unchallenged. I reached out to Charlotte and Robert, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. They had always been kind to me, and I hoped they would help. "Wendy, what's the matter?" Charlotte's voice was warm as she answered the phone. "Charlotte, I need to talk to you and Robert." "It's about Kyle," I whispered, struggling to keep my voice steady. There was a pause. "Come over, dear. We'll be here," she said softly. When I arrived at their house, my nerves were frayed. Charlotte and Robert greeted me with worried looks. "Please sit down," Charlotte urged, guiding me to the sofa. Taking a deep breath, I began. "Kyle, he's been having an affair. I found messages from a woman named Tina." Charlotte's hand flew to her mouth in shock. Robert's expression darkened. "I had a feeling something was off," he muttered. "I need your help," I continued. "I need to gather proof and confront him. I can't do this alone." Robert nodded firmly. "We'll help. Kyle needs to face the consequences of his actions." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Charlotte and Robert launched their own investigation, piecing together Kyle's deceit. They called in favors and connected with people in their social circle who knew more about his activities. One evening, I sat with Charlotte at her dining table. "We've found enough," she said, placing a folder in front of me. Inside were photos, phone records, and receipts. Solid evidence. I felt a surge of mixed emotions, anger, relief, sadness. "Thank you," I said, my voice cracking. "We're here for you, Wendy. You don't have to face this alone," Charlotte reassured. The next step was meeting with a lawyer. Charlotte accompanied me, her presence a comforting anchor. We explained the situation to the lawyer, who listened carefully. "This is solid evidence," he said, scanning through the documents. "You have a strong case for both divorce and a significant settlement." Kyle's betrayal was more than just an emotional blow. It was a violation of the trust and life we'd built together. And as painful as it was, I needed to protect myself and my baby. As we left the lawyer's office, Charlotte squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Wendy." A few nights later, Charlotte and Robert came over to our house. Kyle was out, no doubt with Tina. We went through the final details of our plan. We'll confront him tonight, Robert said, his voice resolute. Hours later, Kyle stumbled in, the smell of alcohol on his breath. He froze when he saw us gathered in the living room. What's going on? He demanded, his voice slurred. Charlotte stepped forward, holding the folder of evidence. Kyle, we need to talk. He blinked, confusion turning to anger. What is this? You've been cheating on Wendy, Robert said bluntly. We have proof. Kyle's eyes darted to me, then the folder. This is ridiculous, he said, his bravado faltering. It's all here, Kyle, I said, my voice steady. The messages, the photos, everything. His face twisted with rage. You've been spying on me? You left me no choice, I replied calmly. We're done, Kyle. I'm filing for divorce. Kyle staggered back, his bravado crumbling. You can't do this. I already have, I said, standing my ground. You'll face the consequences of your actions. As Charlotte and Robert stood beside me, I felt the strength of their support. Kyle's reign of deceit was over. It was time for him to face the fallout and for me to start rebuilding my life. It was the middle of the night when Charlotte and Robert arrived with a spare key. We knew Kyle would be at his most vulnerable, the perfect time to confront him with no chance to escape his lies. Are you ready? Robert asked, a glint of determination in his eyes. I nodded, the weight of the folder in my hands grounding me. Yes, it's time. We quietly entered the house. The living room felt cold and empty, a reflection of our fractured lives. Kyle was asleep on the couch, snoring softly. Robert shook him awake, and he jerked up, blinking in confusion. What the? He stammered, trying to gather his bearings. Kyle, get up. We need to talk. Robert's voice was steely and unwavering. Kyle rubbed his eyes, looking around at us. What is this? Why are you here? He demanded, anger rising as he fully woke. I stepped forward, holding the folder out. We know everything, Kyle. Your affair with Tina, the lies, all of it. His face twisted in panic, then quickly shifted to anger. This is absurd. You can't just break in and accuse me of things. We're not accusing you. We're presenting facts, Charlotte interjected, her tone sharp. Kyle's eyes darted to the folder. You've been spying on me? He spat. You betrayed me, Kyle. I had no choice, I replied, my voice firm. We have proof. Robert opened the folder and began displaying the evidence. Pictures of Kyle with Tina, detailed phone records, receipts for hotel stays. Kyle's anger melted into a defeated silence. You think you can ruin my life with this? He sneered, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. You've ruined your own life, I countered. You shattered the trust in our marriage, and now you'll face the consequences. Kyle's bravado faltered. What do you want, Wendy? He asked, his voice tinged with desperation. I want a divorce, I said bluntly. And you're leaving tonight. What? His voice cracked. This is my house. Not anymore, Charlotte said, stepping forward. We've already spoken to a lawyer. Wendy has a right to this home, especially with the baby on the way. You'll be staying elsewhere. Kyle's eyes flashed with rage. You can't do this. Oh, we can, Robert replied, his voice ice cold. And we are. You will leave, or we'll call the police. Your choice. Realizing his defeat, Kyle stood up, hands trembling. This isn't over, he hissed, grabbing his car keys from the table. Yes, it is, I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. Take whatever you need for the night. The rest can be arranged later. Kyle grabbed a few belongings, his expression a mixture of anger and helplessness. As he exited the house, I watched, feeling a strange sense of liberation. Once he was gone, the house seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Robert placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Wendy. This is the first step towards a new beginning. I nodded, gratitude welling up inside me. Thank you, both of you, for standing by me. Charlotte smiled, her eyes full of warmth. We're family, Wendy. We'll get through this together. As I locked the door behind us, the weight of Kyle's betrayal began to lift. It wasn't just a night of reckoning. It was the dawn of my new life. And with Charlotte and Robert by my side, I felt stronger than ever, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Kyle didn't waste time attempting damage control. The next day, I found him on our doorstep, looking disheveled and desperate. You can't lock me out of my own house, Wendy, he said, his voice wavering between anger and pleading. I've already started the divorce process. This house is for me and the baby, I replied firmly, standing my ground. He stepped closer, his face contorted with rage. You think you can just take everything from me? You took everything from me the moment you started that affair, I retorted, clutching my belly protectively. Kyle's eyes burned with a mix of desperation and fury. You'll regret this. Mark my words. I think you're the one who'll regret it, I said, closing the door in his face. Days turned into a blur of legal meetings and preparations. The reality of my decision was both daunting and liberating. Charlotte and Robert were a constant source of support, their presence a fortress of stability. One afternoon, as I packed some of Kyle's belongings, Ethan stopped by. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked gently. I sighed, wiping sweat from my forehead. "It's tough, but I'm getting through it." Ethan nodded. "I'm here if you need anything. And Wendy, you're stronger than you think." His words sparked a glimmer of reassurance in me. "Thanks, Ethan. It means a lot." Later that week, I received a call from my lawyer. "Wendy, I wanted to update you on the settlement," he said. "Kyle is fighting for everything, but we've got a strong case." "Thank you," I responded, appreciating the steady confidence in his voice. The next time Kyle showed up, it was with his own lawyer. "We need to discuss the terms," Kyle said, trying to mask his frustration with a veneer of professionalism. We sat at the dining table, the lawyers diving into a tense negotiation. "Wendy should retain the house, given her condition and the baby's needs," my lawyer insisted. "This is ridiculous," Kyle's lawyer countered. "Kyle deserves a fair share." I leaned forward, addressing Kyle directly. "You put us in this situation. If you want to fight, you'll be fighting a losing battle." Kyle's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, his lawyer continuing to argue on his behalf. The discussion dragged on, but in the end, the agreement tilted in my favor. The house would be mine, as well as a substantial portion of our assets. Kyle's face was a mask of restrained fury as we finalized the documents. "You'll pay for this, Wendy," he threatened quietly as they left. That night, I lay in bed, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly. I had won a battle, but I knew the war was far from over. In the days that followed, news of Kyle's downfall spread. His colleagues and friends began to distance themselves, the scandal tainting his reputation. Financial penalties started piling up, adding to his growing list of troubles. Meanwhile, I moved back to my parents' home, focusing on my health and the baby. Charlotte and Robert frequently visited, their support unwavering. One afternoon, Charlotte sat down with me, holding my hand. "Wendy, you've been incredibly brave through all of this. We're proud of you." "Thank you, Charlotte," I said, tears of gratitude welling up. "I couldn't have done it without you and Robert." As the sun set that evening, bringing a sense of calm over the house, I felt the stirrings of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with each day, I was moving closer to a future free of betrayal and filled with the promise of new beginnings. The day finally came when I brought my baby girl into the world. After hours of labor, the sound of her first cries brought an overwhelming surge of relief and joy. "She's beautiful, Wendy," Charlotte whispered, tears in her eyes as she held my daughter for the first time. I gazed at my newborn, feeling an immense sense of love and protectiveness. "Her name is Emily," I said softly, touching her tiny hand. Charlotte and Robert visited us often, bringing both emotional and financial support. They helped me finalize the divorce, ensuring that I and Emily would have a stable future. One afternoon, as we sat in the living room, Robert handed me an envelope. "This is for you and Emily. From us," he said. "What is it?" I asked, opening it. Inside was a generous check. "We want to make sure you have everything you need," Charlotte said. "Consider it a gift for Emily's future." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged them both. "I can't thank you enough. You've been like parents to me." "You are family, Wendy," Robert replied, his voice filled with warmth. Moving back to my parents' home was a fresh start. They welcomed us with open arms, and their support added to the strength I was slowly regaining. One evening, as Emily slept peacefully, I received a call from Ethan. "Hey, I heard the news. Congratulations on Emily," he said warmly. "Thanks, Ethan." "It feels like a new chapter is beginning," I responded, glancing at my sleeping daughter. "Listen, I wanted to stop by and see how you're doing. Maybe tomorrow?" he asked. "I'd like that. Thank you for being there," I said, feeling a comforting sense of companionship. The following day, Ethan arrived with a small gift for Emily. "Here, I got this for her," he said, handing me a plush teddy bear. "Thank you, Ethan. She'll love it," I said, smiling. We sat down and talked, the conversation flowing easily. "How are you holding up?" he asked, genuine concern in his eyes. "I'm better," I admitted. "Having Emily and the support from everyone has made a huge difference." Ethan nodded. "You've been through a lot, Wendy. I'm glad you're finding your strength." As the weeks went by, the financial settlement came through, securing Emily's and my future. Kyle's legal battles and financial ruin were constantly in the background, but I focused on moving forward. One afternoon, as I held Emily, Charlotte and Robert visited. "Wendy, we have some news," Charlotte said, her expression both serious and hopeful. What is it? I asked, feeling a flutter of apprehension. Kyle has given up on contesting the divorce and the settlement, Robert said. He's accepted the terms. A wave of relief washed over me. That's good news. It means you can fully focus on building a new life for you and Emily, Charlotte said, hugging us both. Kyle had lost everything. His family's trust, his financial stability, and the life he took for granted. The public revelation of his affair added to his disgrace, leaving him isolated and estranged. As I watched Emily grow, surrounded by the love and support of those who truly cared, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and in its wake, I found strength and clarity. Reflecting on the journey from betrayal to empowerment, I knew that the future held challenges, but it also held promise. With Emily in my arms, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next, determined to provide a loving and stable home for her. The shadows of the past were just that, shadows. And in the light of new beginnings, they couldn't hold us back. We were forging ahead, resilient and hopeful, ready to build a life free from deceit and filled with authenticity and love.